all in our city, state, and country. We ask all of this in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen. If you'll stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor unto the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Okay, next item is open forum. We have one person. Jeff.
Good evening, Council. My name is Jeffrey Murray, though most people know me as Jay Soul. I live at 620 West Cox Street in the Southwest Ward. Here tonight to not only escape the presidential debate, which I'm sure we're all happy to be here to do that, but also to bring to the Council's attention the conduct of a particular member during a recent meeting and express my deep frustration and disappointment. I watched the entire proceeding on August 20th, where rezoning was discussed, and Mr. Mall, your emotional outburst criticizing Ms. Garrigan's business proposal was not only unprofessional but also off topic. As Mr. Huckabee rightly pointed out, the discussion was supposed to focus on rezoning, not on food trucks, noise, rodents, or any of the other distractions you introduced. The tangent clearly showed an inability to base decisions on facts rather than emotions or personal preferences. No one's trying to push older residents out so younger people can have more fun. Young entrepreneurs like myself are simply trying to build businesses and opportunities for our community, just as your generations did. The other council members spoke based on facts and the issue at hand, which is why they were what they were sworn to do, and which is why I have the utmost respect for them. On February 24th of 2023, my co-host Clay and I interviewed you on the Big East Texas Morning Show on 103 The Bull when you were running for your current seat. You mentioned that after living in Nacogdoches for 17 years without issue, a personal zoning problem sparked your interest in local government and led you to seek a position on this council. This clearly shows that your candidacy was mostly driven by self-interest rather than a genuine desire to serve the public. To me, that is not public service, that is quite the opposite. Your comment during the last council meeting that someday all the old people will die was very telling. Yes, the old generation will pass on because that's how the circle of life works. But those who remain should not have to live with the consequences of the bias and selfish decisions made here by the council today. In closing, I want to remind you of something that you said during our very spirited interview last year. When asked about your vision for Nacogdoches, you said there are lots of things ahead in the future because we need to grow as a city. We don't want to be stagnant. It's incredibly disappointing to see you act contrary to those words, repeatedly obstructing growth and progress. Mrs. Bellinger, Mr. Williams, Mr. Johnson, Mr. Mall, Mr. Huckabee, if we are not progressing, we are essentially moving backwards. I love my hometown of Nacogdoches, and I want to see it thrive with new businesses and ideas that represent all of its citizens. This is what visitors return for, and this is why the residents of this great town call it home. When making future decisions, I implore you, Mr. Mall, as well as the rest of the council, to remember the oath of service that you all took to protect, honor, defend, and serve all citizens of Nacogdoches. Thank you.
Okay, we'll go on to the next item, the regular agenda. It'll be a public hearing. And is a public hearing to hold and receive citizen input on the proposed fiscal year 2024-2025 budget. Mr. Todd.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Todd Semino, Interim Finance Director. So as you know, Mayor and Council, we've spent hours talking about the budget during our workshops in the months of July and August. So tonight, you'll be happy to know I've tried to summarize all the key points of the budget in one slide. This is really for the, sorry. So in this one slide, you'll see the major funds of the city. It's the general fund, the utility fund, and the sanitation fund. And what I really want to draw your attention to are the highlighted areas. The first highlighted area is the operating income for each fund. That shows that we're in compliance with the city charter, which states that you should have more operating revenues than you do operating expenses. And then the bottom highlighted area, it is a policy requirement where we are required to have at least an excess of 25% of the annual expenditures left over in operating cash. So we've met the requirements of the city charter, we met the requirements of our own internal policies, and also I just wanted to point out on the footnotes on the bottom there, just points of interest, we are proposing that we implement the tax rate of the voter approval rate, which is shown there, and also in the water and sewer fund, we've proposed a rate increase. That says 5.5%, but I think you've all seen the study. I think it's actually 5.4% rate increase. And so I will leave it here for your questions or citizen questions.
Okay, anybody have, well, okay, we'll just open this now to the public. Do I have anybody here that wants to have anything, has anything to say about the proposed budget for this year? Yes, ma'am, if you'll come up here and state your name and address, please.
Hello, I'm Nancy Niehaus, and I live at 3900 Redwood Drive. I have a question about the, I just saw it in the newspaper, something approving a new person as an assistant finance person for $200,000. And I'm curious about that, for one thing. And then the other thing I'm very curious about is how do we find out how much money each committee gets? I'm on one of the committees, the Mayor's Committee on Disability, but I don't know how much money all the committees get. And I'm curious as to, I've heard that there's like $200,000 for fixing up old homes that are in the historical district or something. Can there be $200,000 also for fixing up homes in maybe the southeast or the southwest wards? And then I'm wondering if the city has ever considered making a real concerted effort of bringing the Black history to the forefront to help with tourism. I think we have a very rich Black history that that could be made into a, I mean, I don't mean to take advantage of people, but I think it could be a very interesting tourist opportunity, as well as inclusion of all the people in the community.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how many things that was.
That was a lot.
I know.
I think, you want to go ahead first? You have, okay. I think, maybe, let me start with the finance thing. It wasn't finance. It was chief of staff or ACM, I think, assistant city manager. And like Todd said, we beat this budget to death. And everyone on this council knows some of the hardships that we've been through, especially this year, because we've had a senior staff and we've lost a lot of people. Some of them have left on their own, some of them we've asked to leave, and some of them are at retirement. So now what we have is there's probably more going on in this town right now. I've lived here all my life than I've ever seen. And we have $43 million in bond money that we're going to have to spend. And we don't have enough Indians to be able to do this and do it to where your money is spent wisely and on point. We don't have a very big staff here. I know everybody thinks that we're top heavy on management, but we're not. I mean, if you compare this town to Lufkin has 3 assistant city managers. We don't have one. I don't know that we've ever had one, you know. And it's time. I think this council has done a great job in, along with the new city manager, in recognizing our strengths and weaknesses on, especially on our staff. And we are set and we are determined to make this the best city staff that we have ever had in the history of Nacogdoches. And it's about 90% complete. We have one more gentleman coming in planning and, what's his role, Rick? Planning and
He'll be executive director over development and infrastructure. So if you want me to speak to
Yes.
some of it real quick.
yes.
So I think at the present, I've got 10 direct reports, but the proposed chief, let me speak to the proposed chief of staff right now first. So I've been in smaller organizations, larger organizations, public sector, private sector, both, and quasi-governmental. And so you've got your larger day-to-day charge, then you have, in our case, you have a fairly large, for our size at the moment, CIP in terms, so it's your capital improvement plan. If you look at some of the items, even, I'll just say historically, y'all have had some plans that weren't completed. You've had some things that maybe could have been coordinated even internally between different divisions. I know when I arrived, the audit was behind. We had significant turnover, but we also have historically, we've had multiple single points of failure. What that effectively means is if you have one, then you lose them, you have none in some areas. I think our total turnover, I think at finance ultimately was about 75%. We have several other divisions, it's been 50 at different times, which you're going to get normal attrition. My point is, if you look at some of the things that weren't completed in the past or were not completed maybe to everyone's satisfaction, part of that is not just hiring contractors. I think I've mentioned this even with CIP itself. We're trying to build in, even into budgets, that there are those that are watching the contractors and those watching the watchers. So if you have multiple single points of failure or minimal oversight, in the case of the chief of staff, they could end up eventually with a direct report like an ACM. My initial desire would be to have them work amongst the different departments. Oftentimes we'll get special projects. We'll have other initiatives that somehow don't fall into one specific area but might fall between two or three. And it may be checking on status on terms of dates, milestones. It may be managing a specific contractor. Let's just take another one that was glaring, the rate study. So the rate study was supposed to be completed before I arrived. I know we're convening the CNAC and it will be coming to you shortly. But at my tally, there was probably, I don't know, $700,000-800,000 of stuff across maybe a couple of years that were really not closed out. And unfortunately, the only way to do it is you either have eyes on it, and it doesn't necessarily mean that some of it wouldn't fall to the city manager or, let's say, directorships or executive directorships. But I do think, and Todd can speak to this maybe too, well, I've been, again, larger organizations, smaller ones. I've seen much smaller organizations that may even have a chief of staff or a deputy or an ACM, much smaller than I would even recommend having them. When I was in the Hill Country, I had a chief of staff. I elevated someone. I didn't have any other ACMs. We were at 85, 90,000 people. All the other cities had executive directors, and I had a couple of those too, elevated a few people. But many of those cities, comparable size, had 3 to 4 ACMs, sometimes a chief of staff, sometimes a deputy. At the end of the day, yes, you'll spend a little more on the front end, but it's to assist in the larger process and workflow, so you're not making multiple several $100,000 errors, if not, once you get into your capital projects, to your point. I have seen things that if one other person that was competent was watching, you could miss $500,000 right there. I mean, they would pay for themselves times two on one activity. And so that would be my reason. You have SFA likely to grow, ultimately to be bigger than it ever was. We have very old infrastructure. We have a charge from the public to move forward on all these projects. And if I didn't bring them up in the first place in terms of seeing that we have gaps, and if I didn't make any recommendations, I would say okay, we'll do our best, but we may miss something. That would be a fair admission, because I have seen that happen multiple places, or have to come in and clean up and try to make a few very minor strategic moves. Now, in terms of what is placed in the budget, yes, it's $200,000. That is not the salary. That is fully burdened. So when I say fully burdened, that is benefits, TMRS, healthcare, everything, FICA. And so just like it would be on the private sector, it's the cost that you budget is not the cost of salary. I would also say that is not just a plug and play. If you have probably noticed, I have taken some time to make sure I've got a few of them in the room. Hello, Rebecca. To make sure it's not a knee jerk. I would rather, even if it's 6 months, if it's 3 months to find the right person, if it goes a whole year and there's not the right fit, because at the end of the day, it's better to have the right people, not just a warm body, but the right people with the skill set and the background that'll fit here with what we have on our plate right now. So I don't know if that helps, but if we can avoid several $100,000 mistakes, it will pay for itself.
Let me add one other thing to that too. What we've historically, when someone has left a department, here we are scrambling around trying to find the replacement. What we're trying to do now is set the table, for example, in finance, okay? We just hired a new, I forgot your name, I'm sorry. Rebecca. We just hired Rebecca for our finance director. Well, Rebecca's not going to want to work the rest of her life. Rebecca's charge is to train someone in her office that just walks right into that job. Same way, whether it be in human resources. I can see two people here tonight that were brought up from the ranks, the fire chief and Jessica. So that's what we're trying to build here. You've got ACM or chief of staff that Rick's not going to want to work the rest of his life either. That we just bring that person up to fill.
Well, I'll be honest. Let me say this. You never meet in the wild a 90-year-old city manager. So let me just say that.
Yeah.
But in all honesty, we do need to build this, not that it's top-heavy, and this is not just in one area, across all areas, that there's some redundancy, succession planning, and I'll be honest, yes, you have a politically sensitive position sometimes, especially once you get past usually directorships, and even those, because they have to be approved by council. My charge should be to build this so in the event of, be it an election, my own health, or something else, that it can effectively run for the benefit of the citizens long-term without being a cult of personality or major impact. There are some folks out there that will kind of try to build something where it builds in job security. That's not my goal here. It's not my goal here to try to build it to go somewhere else either. This is the last city I want to work for. But if it's not the intent to do that, then you're not looking at you're not playing the long game for the good of the organization and the community.
That doesn't mean that he's not gonna do anything. He's just gonna be able to manage the city now, like he was hired to do. Now, I don't remember all those other things, but I will address, as far as the African American community, that, and I totally agree with you. My family's been in business 65 years. I can remember going and with my grandfather and having soda pop at Mr. Butler's store over on Orton Street. I can remember several, and there is history here. I mean, even older than I am. I mean, it does need to be brought out. Now, excuse me, I've drawn a blank, but there's a statue that we're going to put up. E.J. Campbell we're putting a statue. They're putting a statue over there. Sure. I'd love to see more Black history in this town. But you got to have a driver. Got to have a driver, and that'd be a good project for you, maybe. So or somebody. Yes.
In terms of floating all boats, raising all ships, I do think as we come forward on things like the land bank and the tax lien properties and things like that, I think we are going to have some opportunities for improving all parts of town, a range of housing. And the other piece is, just like when we submitted to Pete Sessions' office, when we submitted on granted, this last budget year, the feds have, they took our $3 million down to $1 million. That happened across the board. Everything got cut back. But on that case, we're targeting infrastructure in low mod areas. So there are things we can do across the board. I think that is the goal, is the quality of life, safety, security, roofs over the head, food in the belly, jobs, all of the above. That's it.
Yeah. One other person I failed to mention was Case Oberman. I mean, we brought him up to replace Steve Bartlett, and he's in engineering now, along with Jason Vickery. So, anyway, that's our intentions, is to be able to hire from within. That's instead of go out and scramble around. And we've never done that here. We've always just anyway. That doesn't make any difference. So,
I'd like to add
sure.
a couple of things. Okay, one of the reasons that I'm excited about having this position is because our city has so many people who want to contribute. Businesses, we see Elliott Electric now coming downtown. We have opportunities for philanthropy to participate. I know our mayor has worked with business to help over at the baseball field, and that was something that the city would otherwise would have come out of the city's pocket. And to manage that, you need this particular position, and I think it will pay for itself within the first year, at least in triplicate. And I also wanted to say some of the things that you don't see, you may not be aware of happening. You were talking about the land bank and the tax lien. The city and our staff has taken the lead in looking at the properties that have not had taxes paid on them and seeing what we can do to help the entire community. And many of those are in the 21-7 area that you're talking about. So I just really appreciate, in fact, we actually talked about a position like that even before our new city manager came, because we could see the fractured nature of it. And I think so many things will be helped by having that. So I appreciate our city manager. I don't appreciate people saying they might not stay here forever, because I really would like y'all to stay here forever. But no, really and truly, we appreciate what you've done and putting that position. And were you going to say?
I do think if you take, just my humble opinion, and I know it's taken a while, we want the right fit, but if you look at every position, every one we've filled, or even where we've paused and taken a while, at the end of the day, I think we've got a not just a professional staff, but we've got one where team-oriented folks that have come together, that are now here with the range of capability to get stuff done. And yes, there are cities that are much more top-heavy that are even our size. We can't afford to do that, but we also can't afford to not deliver the best, the best outcome for everyone. So thank you all and thank everyone for being supportive. I mean, this also goes back to even the bond election and that unanimous vote. So we're ready to move forward.
Okay. Any other comments?
Oh, thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
Explaining.
Sure.
Good questions.
Okay. Now, can I close it? Okay. No other comments? Then I'll go ahead and close the public hearing, and we'll go to council discussion. I'll start if y'all want me to. Okay. Since we're talking about the budget, I wanted to go through this again, and we have extensively had workshops and meetings and workshops and meetings and workshops and meetings. And there's two things that we have to realize. We have to realize what revenue is, and we have to know what our expenses are. And if you don't have revenue, then you can't spend as much. So, and correct me if I'm wrong, Todd, sales tax makes up probably 35% of our revenue, or it's probably more than that. The total 2%.
Right now it's 28%.
Okay, so that's on 1%.
Right.
Okay, so let's say it's 40%. If we had the other penny, right? 40% of our revenue for this city is based on sales tax. Okay, I got a deal from the comptroller, and I just want to tell you where we are as of through June of 2024. Our payments to date are $5,857,000. Okay, that's 6 months of the year. So you double that, that's going to be close to $11 million. Well, guess where the other $11 million is going? It's going to a hospital district. Okay. I'm not knocking the hospital district. I just want people in this town to understand and know that we are one of few people. Well, if you look at Nacogdoches, Lufkin, Longview, Marshall, Tyler, Houston, Texas, Center, and St. Augustine, there's only 2 counties that I've mentioned have 1% of their sales tax go back into the general fund, and that's Nacogdoches and Houston, Texas, which there's a lot of difference between the sales tax in Houston, Texas and Nacogdoches, Texas.
And Mayor, let me, on Houston, having spent too much time there, they're a member of Houston Metro.
Right.
So that 1 penny, not only do they receive federal funds for their transit purposes, they collect the 1 penny, they collect the penny for not just transit per se, but general mobility. So when the Houston Metro, through that, is able to reconstruct, let's say, I remember when they reconstructed all the downtown streets in Houston under that program. They also distribute to the outlying cities that are also members, Humboldt and Missouri City and others. They distribute roadway, actually purely for roadway purposes. Basically, it's a revenue sharing for infrastructure. So I would point out that in the case of, if you look at a Houston or a large metro, they typically they're subsidizing their roadway system as well, their non-TxDOT roads. Anywhere that there's a transit line, they're doing infrastructure. And with that, they're also doing water lines and drainage and subsurface with that. So yes, they're not collecting it, but it is going towards their larger infrastructure pot for all mobility.
Right. Okay, to date, and I know we're just talking about the city's budget right now, but if you look at the sales tax for Nacogdoches County to date, Nacogdoches County Hospital District has been given $7.8 million of our sales tax that was generated through this county, $5.8 million through the city of Nacogdoches. Again, I'm not knocking anybody. I just want the people of this town to know where your money is going. We can't do it all based on when 1% of our sales tax goes to a hospital district, and you can be your own judge of where you think that's beneficial or not. There's arguments about indigent care. I don't even want to get into that. I'm all for indigent care. I don't think anybody should be deprived of any health care, and I don't think anybody ever has been that I know of in this county at Nacogdoches Hospital District. I know that our local hospital here, the private one, picks up a big majority of the indigent care expense. There are ways that this can be worked out to where it benefits everyone. The hospital district, the city, the county. It's just we have to all come to the table and sit down and leave our egos at the door to where we can make this work, where we can prosper, this town can grow. This is the only thing in that is blocking us from growth, is we have to have the revenue that we deserve. So you may hear me say this one more time. I can't ever get the paper to print it. They always talk about Randy Johnson has consternation, towards Memorial Hospital. It's not that at all. I just want everyone in this town to know where the majority of the money that should be going back into our general fund to help our people in this town and grow this city is going. It's going to Memorial Hospital. So with that being said, I'm done until next week. And I'll say it again.
And I might want to add, without our oversight. That's part of the
Yeah.
issue.
Yeah, and there's ways that this can be worked out, and it's long overdue, and it's unsustainable, I'm telling you. Okay, I'm done. Anybody else?
I have a question for Todd, so if that's okay. Sorry. So I know we were talking about the water and sewer rate increase, and that will be discussed actually tomorrow. And tomorrow at 3, then we'll be meeting to set that rate, the water and sewer rate.
Correct.
So might it be better for us to punt this decision on the budget, knowing that we're all in favor of this budget and there's no problems with it, but until we finalize that water and sewer rate tomorrow and then take it up next? I'm totally happy to do either way, approve the budget today, but if there might be some slippage or something or changes, is it better to just go ahead and, did you want to speak to it, Rick, or?
Todd and I talked about that, and
Okay,
even though this budget, if you look at the bottom line and the interfund transfers that occur, that it's based on, includes the 5.4% rate increase, because there is a defraying of other overall costs across the budget with it. We could do the adoption on the 17th and let this go ahead and go in a normal flow in terms of order, in terms of taking up the rate study. Did you have anything to add to that?
so that might be the wiser.
You
just-
could, I mean, in
just in ca-
there,
Or,
even though I would say that how this budget was built, that 5.5 is kind of a baseline, because we think it's reasonable. Actually, I know I've maybe sent y'all a few articles too. I think some cities are doing, cities that you wouldn't expect, they're in 10% rate increases.
Right.
And they're not doing raises, and they're going to the maximum tax rate. I mean, it's actually scary what's happening statewide, going back to the unsustainable thing, because, and these are many cities that have both pennies. But I'd be comfortable still going back on coming on the 17th. I mean, we want everyone to be comfortable with it. If, if we had to reverse course and change something in there, we'd figure it out.
Yeah.
But, I think that 5.5 was fairly reasonable, everyone's assessment, but I'd like CNAC to come to their own conclusion before that comes to y'all.
Okay, that seems
I don't want to force
yeah.
a decision that way,
Okay.
even though we've put it out there that way. We're trying to be as transparent as possible, that if we did this, again, we can always figure it out. We can always cut something, but we want to make it clear that 5.5 is how we built the budget.
You want to get it right.
Yeah.
So, I do want to say that as far as transparency and collaboration, and I really appreciate this budgeting process this year, really, and I know all my colleagues do. I'm just speaking first, but we really appreciate the transparency and the collaboration and working with us on priorities, and this has just been a very painless, budgeting process and very clear. And I know it took everybody, all the staff who were in here, I know it took everybody's work, and so I know we all appreciate that very much. So,
Thank you all for the support throughout because
So,
this was a new crew doing this, so that support meant a lot to get us through this, because we went straight from dealing with the audit, getting that cleaned up, the budget, and so it took everybody.
let me say one more thing about sales tax, just for the record. I'm looking at this chart here, and like you got Nacogdoches, Lufkin, Longview, Marshall, Tyler, Houston, and St. Augustine. There are only 2 cities of all those that I mentioned that have an increase in their sales tax through June. We have a 2.19% increase, and Marshall has a 4.6% increase. Lufkin's down 3.24%. Longview's down 4.86%. Tyler's down 2.67%. City of Houston down 1.85%. Center down 4.83%, and St. Augustine down 12.66%. That's a lot of money. Just whenever you don't collect your sales tax, that you budgeted, and especially when you just have one penny of it. So for clarification, so what are we doing? Are we? Yeah, Brad, you got anything to say?
Let me turn this on. My only question is there any benefit for us to approve it tonight or to wait another day or whatever? Is it a matter of transparency? Is that what you're looking for?
I think that's it. I mean, even though we've had, some questions from the CNAC or just some comments, we've sent everybody the report. It's all been positive. I don't want to have it written in stone that we're not taking things in the right order. So it is transparent.
So it would be better to wait,
Yeah,
you think?
it's fine to wait. I don't have any, Todd and I are fine with that. The staff is as well. There's no eggshells. Even if y'all tell us to pivot, we pivot.
Will it be a hearing next week too, or will it just be a item agenda?
I don't think it's another one, but go ahead.
Yeah, so we'll conclude the budget hearing tonight, but next week there will be a tax rate hearing.
Okay,
So that's a separate hearing.
okay.
And again, the state law dictates that after the close of the budget hearing tonight, regardless of which way y'all want to go, you do have to take action on the budget, either postponing it till next week or taking action on it tonight.
So you need a motion tonight.
We will need a motion tonight on the budget either way.
And you'd rather it be postponed?
I think like the city manager said,
transparency.
for financial transparency, since you're gonna have a workshop on the rate study tomorrow, there could be something in there that throws a kink in maybe your plans. I doubt it, but there could be. So that would give us time to go back and modify the budget if that was to happen.
Right, okay. All right. Let me say one other thing, because I can't get all my thoughts together, but I'm gonna say this anyway. You know, we're in a time now of social media, and of course, everybody pays attention to it, or they glance at it, and you know, I've heard and seen a lot of things online on social media about $200,000 chief of staff, you know. Those people that said that aren't here tonight. The only one that has been one lady here that came up and voiced, you know, she just asked some questions, is all she did. I think everybody that, you know, get off social media, come up here and stand in front of this mic, you know? And you need to be, if you got questions, you need to go to city council meetings when we have a budget. You need to go to the county. You need to go to the school boards. And for sure, go to the hospital district, you know? And you'll find out a lot more there, you know, maybe, than you probably did here. So, anyway, okay, I've probably said enough, so I'm done. Anybody else?
I'm good.
So,
I'll make a motion that we put off the, is it too late? Okay.
And then we'll open that item.
All right.
Okay, I thought I'd already closed it. Okay, I'm closing it now. Okay.
Now let's go to the next item.
It's just a head fake while ago, don't, you know.
Yeah.
Okay, now I'm closing the public hearing, and we've already discussed it, so, okay. Anybody want to make a motion?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion.
I'm sorry, hang on just a minute, this lawyer's talking.
Wait,
Huh?
Go ahead and read the second item.
Okay, all right. We'll go to 4B. Consider approval of ordinance approving and adopting the annual budget for the fiscal year beginning October 1st, 2024, and ending September 30th, 2025, providing that said expenditures for said fiscal year shall be made in accordance with budget, unless otherwise authorized by an ordinance adopted by City Council, providing for a repeal clause, providing a severability clause, and providing an effective date. Brad, make your motion, please.
all right. So and it is September 17th that would be put off too, is that correct? So I'll make a motion that we put off the decision on this until September 17th.
Second.
Have a motion second, all in favor?
aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Okay, that concludes tonight's meeting. Thank you all for coming, and God bless this great city of Nacogdoches, Texas.